My name is Amy, and I'm 33 years old. I started a business during my college years, and through hard work, I became the CEO. Over time, I expanded the company to achieve an impressive annual turnover of $3 million. Unfortunately, my husband and I were unable to have children. He mocked me for this, calling me barren throughout our marriage. To make matters worse, he fathered a child with another woman and decided to marry her. Despite his own infidelity, he continued to demean me until the end. His cruel remarks cut deep. He once told me, "Go get some fertility treatment. It's a joke to live your whole life alone. And you have the nerve to say that after having an affair, it's true you can't get pregnant. No one will marry someone like you." I had finally reached the breaking point. A few days ago, I filed for divorce. I've moved back to my parents' house, while my soon-to-be ex-husband remains in the home we shared. He contacted me to remove my belongings because he plans to live there with his new partner. Today is likely the last day I'll see him, and he stayed true to form with his sarcasm. "The future bride is coming. The barren woman should pack up and leave. Your presence will make her uncomfortable," he said. "This was my home too," I retorted. "Why should I rush out for your cheating and remarried partner? The divorce is already final. Such clingy remarks are disgraceful. We agreed that I continue living here, so you have no reason to stay. Hurry up." I was going to leave anyway. "Good luck finding a new man to support you." "Oh, but a barren woman like you remarrying is impossible." His continued sarcasm was astounding. I had grown accustomed to his contempt, but his nasty remarks still grated on me. I knew I had made the right decision to divorce. As I sighed, I wondered why I had ever married him. We met by chance at a cafe near our workplace, and after his persistent pursuit, we started dating. I had always been focused on my work, with little involvement in romance, often feeling betrayed and hurt. Despite this, I still hoped for a family and children in the future. As a CEO with a $3 million revenue, I was frequently approached for my money, which I despised. To avoid this, I lied to my husband, claiming to be a low-income contract worker, and even used a subsidiary's business card to hide my true status. He said he fell in love with me at first sight and pursued me relentlessly. Little did I know he would turn into such a sarcastic person. As years went by, it became clear that a man's interest would wane for a younger, more attractive woman. And my husband proved that when he started an affair right after our marriage. He even fathered a child with his lover. When he asked for a divorce, I accepted immediately. Assuming I was financially poor, he never discussed dividing assets. Instead, when he and his mistress came to apologize for his infidelity, they quickly offered compensation for my mental distress. "Amy, you're a contract worker, aren't you? In a worse position than me, childless and abandoned. A younger woman has taken your husband and child to remarry. I'm terribly sorry. We'll definitely pay the compensation," his mistress said. Indeed, my husband added, "Infertility treatments cost money, and I will pay my share too." Despite their promises, their words were laced with scorn, fueling my anger. His mistress, a charming woman 8 years younger than me, was eager to have a child and become a housewife. When my husband wasn't around, I asked her if she planned to continue working. She firmly replied that she intended to quit after taking a 3-year maternity leave to get money from the company, rather than quitting right after marriage. "But isn't that inconvenient for the company?" I asked. "Well, I became a full-time employee to get all the benefits, right? It's not uncommon for people not to return after maternity leave." "You're too serious, Amy. You need to be smarter about this. It's probably why your husband left you," she retorted sarcastically. I was seething with irritation. I had no problem with being a housewife, but I couldn't empathize with someone who so thoughtlessly inconveniences others. My husband, oblivious to her disregard, had continued to belittle me. "Infertile women should hurry up and get treatment. Your looks are your only asset, and they're fading with age too," he'd sneer. "Who are you talking about?" I asked, feeling a surge of defiance. "You, the infertile woman," he replied with contempt. In response, I pulled out some documents from an envelope. "What's this?" he demanded, unable to hide his agitation. Inside were 3 documents I had carefully gathered, each meant to shock him. After years of mockery, betrayal, and listening to him brag about his affair and remarriage, my anger had reached its peak. I didn't want his compensation money. I was determined to get my revenge and leave him unsettled. "You kept calling me infertile, so I got tested," Here are the results, I said, placing the documents in front of him. No abnormalities. So who is this infertile woman you keep talking about? Maybe the issue lies with you. This is ridiculous, he stammered. It has to be her. Despite our efforts, we never managed to have kids. Even if you say there's nothing wrong with you, I managed to have a child with her. I wasn't even trying, and she got pregnant right away. He looked visibly confused, as if the fear that his infertility might be the cause and the suspicion that the child might not be his were overwhelming him. Well, it's too convenient that she got pregnant so quickly when we couldn't. She's young and cute, but could it be someone else's child? He muttered, his shock evident. You haven't been tested, have you? I said. It might actually be your child. Don't be so pessimistic. I tried to console him, but he seemed to have convinced himself of his own infertility. Disturbed, he immediately contacted his lover, insisting they needed to talk. What did she say? I asked. She's coming over now, he replied. That's good, I said in a deliberately cheerful tone. If you can confirm it's your child, you'll feel relieved, right? After a moment, he pulled out another document from an envelope. It was a detective's report. This photo. It's me. When was this taken? And this one, right after we got married. Did you know about this all along? Yes, I said calmly. I've known about your infidelity for years, long before you ever admitted to it. That's why I wasn't surprised when you confessed your affair. At the time when I was happiest in our marriage, you were already involved with someone else. Why didn't you say something sooner? If you knew, you should have talked to me. I feel like a fool for not seeing it. Why should I be the one getting scolded? I've been turning a blind eye to your affairs. You should actually be thankful. Hiring a detective right after we got married, that's just pathetic. It's clear you never trusted me at all. I'm shocked, but I know divorcing was the right decision. In the end, you were deceiving me too. We were betraying each other, so it's only fair. When we decided to get married, I was completely carefree and didn't think to conduct a background check on you. I submitted the marriage registration without truly knowing you. We were newlyweds, affectionate and intimate, but even if it wasn't a marriage of convenience, it's never a loss to understand your partner's background. So just to be cautious, I requested an investigation a few months after our marriage. That investigation unexpectedly revealed your infidelity. I was shocked, as there were no signs of cheating before. But I didn't fall into despair. I wasn't obsessed with you. I married you because you courted me. Yes, I loved you, but only because you cherished and loved me. I wasn't going to cling to a husband who didn't care about me. I wasn't deeply hurt. I was just astonished that you could be with me while seeing other women. I told you this to set the record straight. From the beginning of our marriage, my career was my top priority, and I didn't want to get bogged down with divorce proceedings or negotiating alimony right away. Instead, I chose to focus on my work, which is why I continued to ignore your infidelity. When I revealed this to you, you responded with, "But weren't we trying to have a child?" What would you have done if you had gotten pregnant? Were you planning to raise it together even though you knew about the affair? Yes, I said. A child is a gift from God, and we can't control everything. I lied. The truth was, I pretended to be trying to conceive with you because you wanted a child. After your infidelity came to light, I secretly took birth control pills. Honestly, I was reluctant to start a family with an unfaithful husband and anticipated that we would eventually divorce. To avoid pregnancy, I secretly continued using birth control. Ultimately, the fact that we didn't have children was a planned outcome. While I had some fantasies about having kids, I wasn't strongly motivated to do so. Even with a babysitter, I knew that parenting would distract from my work focus. I went along with my husband's desire to have a child, but I had no obligation to undergo pregnancy and childbirth for a man who deceived me. In short, we weren't infertile. I was just using birth control and didn't bother to tell him because it seemed too troublesome. Unaware of this, my husband mistakenly believed he was infertile and thought his mistress was pregnant by another man. As we discussed this, his mistress arrived at our house for the first time since the alimony negotiations. She was the type who easily attracted men and was often disliked by women, and today was no different. "Hello, Amy. You're here to collect all your things, right? I appreciate the trouble you're going through," she said, her tone dripping with contempt, clearly reveling in having taken my husband. I replied sarcastically, "I should be thanking you. You're taking over my hand-me-down husband and house." Her smile faltered at my response. As we continued our exchange, my husband seemed increasingly agitated and anxious. He interrupted our conversation, Hey, I might be infertile. Isn't it strange that we couldn't have a child? What are you talking about all of a sudden? That's impossible. Has someone been feeding you nonsense? We're getting married. Your previous wife was the one with infertility issues, right? No, she wasn't infertile, I said calmly, pulling out the test results. It's hard to discuss, but we were genuinely trying to have a child. If neither of us had issues, it wouldn't be unusual if we succeeded. But we didn't. Yet for us to have a child without realizing it, something's off. Maybe it's because you and I weren't meant to be. Your previous marriage just wasn't meant to work. Let's stop this pointless conversation. Doubting me is only going to stress me out and affect her baby. My husband's suspicions about his mistress extended beyond infertility. He pulled out a photo from an envelope and demanded, "What is this supposed to be?" The photo showed his mistress cozying up with another male colleague. After discovering his infidelity, I had hired a detective to investigate her as well. It turned out she had been involved with several men at work. Along with a photo of her with another colleague, there were also pictures of her heading to hotels with other partners. The mistress turned pale at the sight of the photos. "What is this?" she gasped, clearly stunned. "I had you investigated too," I told her. "It's truly deplorable how many men you've been involved with at work. I had this evidence long before you started talking about remarriage. Every time my husband mentioned you, I couldn't help but laugh inside at the absurdity of deciding to marry while being unaware of your infidelity. I'm truly astounded. If you knew, you should have told me sooner. I wouldn't have married this woman and we wouldn't have ended up divorced. If the infertility was my fault, I would have sought treatment to have a child with you," my husband exclaimed, his attitude shifting dramatically upon learning about his mistress's multiple affairs. "Please, what are you saying now? The child in my belly is growing every day, and these photos are from so long ago. Don't bring them up now. Since conceiving your child, you're the only one for me. I wouldn't even consider remarriage if I didn't love you. Is there any proof that the child is actually mine? It could be someone else's. If you're so sure, show me the evidence. The men in these photos are all my juniors. If the child's theirs, I refuse to raise it." "The child was conceived after we slept together," I said firmly. "It's obviously yours. The introductions to our parents are done. There's no turning back now. We haven't filed the marriage registration, so this is our last chance to start over and clarify the truth." After a heated argument with my husband, his mistress turned her hostility towards me. We were living peacefully until my ex-wife brought these photos. "We've settled our discussions and paid the alimony. Why interfere now? It's pitiful for a discarded wife to still cause a fuss." "You always mock me for being older," I retorted. "But is that all you can say? Perhaps it's because youth is all you have." I wasn't obsessed with my husband, and hearing about the remarriage didn't hurt me much. "Your attacks are meaningless. Had I not exposed your affairs, you would have continued to hide them from him. I thought it was kinder not to have secrets between spouses." "Kindness? That's rich coming from you. These photos have only caused chaos. We could have been happy otherwise." "You're terrible," the mistress retorted, visibly shaken. "Wait a minute, were you really planning to keep hiding this from me? I can't believe a woman with such nerve. Let's reconsider the remarriage." My husband was clearly rattled by the mistress's betrayal. I was taken aback by this turn of events as well, but I couldn't help but think that if their relationship was this fragile, it was doomed from the start. "I paid alimony to you, justifying my relationship with him. If it's going to be nullified, I should have just denied the affair from the beginning," I said. "Calling off the remarriage now is unthinkable." Upon hearing this, my lover responded, "About that alimony, I accepted it at the time, but I donated all of it afterward. I have enough money as it is. I never wanted to keep any money from you too, so I don't appreciate being talked down to as if you did me a favor with that amount." "What? Don't talk big when your income is probably enough to cover that small amount," the mistress snapped. "That alimony nearly wiped out my savings. Donating it is just a joke, right? If that was the case, you should have said you didn't want it from the start." No, my husband interjected. "She's just a contract worker in our subsidiary. Her income is clearly less than ours, so that's obviously a lie. If you really have that much money, marry me again and support me." My husband spoke with disbelief, still mocking me. "You know, I had planned to support you after a few years of marriage. So when I heard you were divorcing me to remarry a younger woman, I thought it was foolish. Stop with the nonsense." Actually, I said calmly, there's something I've been hiding. Look inside this envelope. As I spoke, my husband pulled out a photo from the envelope. It was a picture of the board of directors of the group company he works for. His expression turned to shock as he saw the image. The mistress's eyes widened in recognition. "Isn't that this lady?" she asked incredulously. "Is this a fake?" "Of course it's not a fake," I replied. "The person at the center of the photo is me. I'm the president of your parent company. Sorry for keeping it a secret." "Wait a minute," the mistress exclaimed. "You're supposed to be just a contract worker at our subsidiary, and I thought the president of the parent company was a man." "Stop lying." "Yes, I used a pseudonym at the company," I admitted. "When I started my business as a student, I faced frequent dismissal simply because I was a woman. To navigate these challenges, I used a male pseudonym and kept my identity private. My father acted as a director and spokesperson in the media while I pretended to be a contract worker. This strategy helped me avoid the scrutiny and potential jealousy that might arise from being a female president. I intended to reveal my true identity to you eventually. I had enough funds to support us, but saying my parents were dead was also a lie. My father is my business partner and my mother is well and living at home. Only the top executives knew the truth, so it's natural that you, as a subsidiary employee, wouldn't have been aware of it." When I disclosed this, their faces turned pale. My husband pleaded, "I don't know if the child is mine. I'll cancel the remarriage. Please, I beg you, cancel the divorce. I really wanted a child with you." "You were just insulting me and calling me a baroness," I responded coolly. "The divorce papers have already been filed. It's impossible to cancel now. Do you understand who you're speaking to?" With a smile, I added, "As the president of the parent company, I've resolved to address this situation publicly to protect my valuable employees from being deceived by your behavior." The mistress, who had been mocking me as an older woman, suddenly shifted her tone and apologized. "I'm sorry for trying to take your husband. If you wish, I'll return him to you." "Please forgive me," I replied. "He's my hand-me-down, so I don't need him returned. By the way, I need to announce the pregnancy within the company once it's stable." The mistress's face went even wider at this news. "Please, could you not do that? Why would it cause problems if the company knows?" I asked her sarcastically, "Do you think it wouldn't be a problem? It's likely that you're still involved with others in the company. If exposed, you face backlash from those men and find yourself in a difficult situation." I resolved to make the situation public. The next day, I went to the office and revealed that I, the president, am a woman and that my husband had an affair, divorced me, and had a child with his mistress. The revelation caused a stir among the employees, with many whispering about the scandal. As a result, my husband lost his credibility at work and became a target of criticism. He found himself in a difficult working environment. The mistress was also exposed for having relationships with multiple men at the company. She faced the wrath of those men, who were furious after receiving expensive gifts from her under false pretenses. Although the scandal could have led to lawsuits, it didn't go to court. The mistress managed to deflect blame and claimed the gifts were hers. Upon learning the full story, my father advised the mistress to consider leaving the company. Meanwhile, my ex-husband was ordered to transfer to a remote branch in Indonesia, a place few would willingly go. The mistress decided to accompany him there to raise their child together. Both their families refused to acknowledge their grandchild due to the scandal and their disrespect toward the president. In Indonesia, they faced the challenge of raising their child without family support. My ex-husband harbored growing distrust over the child's paternity and wanted a DNA test, but the mistress insisted there was no such facility in Indonesia, avoiding the test. Despite not wanting to remarry my husband, driven by his desire for a child and pressure from the mistress, ended up marrying her. However, the reality of married life was not as easy as he had imagined. The mistress, who had seen my husband as the top choice among the men she had been involved with, was now content living as a housewife. She claimed that she chose him for his high position. As for me, I've remained in the media spotlight as a female entrepreneur, leading a busy and fulfilling life. The company's stock price surged, and I continue to lead with success and resilience.